There's Warren again.
Yeah, some people have problems with audio or something like that, and they have to kind of jump out and jump back in.
I should be more than 15 minutes.
Yes, Warren.
Yep.
Hello.
Warren.
Okay, we're on board now. Good evening.
Ready to give the presentation, Warren?
Ready to roll. I know the road pretty good, but not as good as Scott now, that's for sure.
You let Scott give the presentation.
Yeah. I'm here for support,
Full support. Yeah.
full support. Yes, sir.
Still see people popping in here, so we'll wait another minute or two.
Okay. There we go.
Give it 2 more minutes. We'll give it to 6:05, a nice round number, and then we're going to get started.
So 5 it shall be.
Warren, with your meeting tomorrow morning with the engineers, where is that going to happen?
My office, Public
was gonna
Works.
If it was at town hall, I might be able to pop in, but anything comes up you need me for, you can call me.
I'll call you, definitely. Yeah, yeah. We're starting at 9:30, Ron, so if you have any time, it's nothing but helpful.
Right.
Yeah, great.
Okay, it's 6:05, so I think we'll get started. So this is a public meeting on the planned Purgatory Road sidewalk. And I'm sure some of you, if not most of you, attended the last public meeting, but just by way of background, the town has decided to proceed with design and construction of a sidewalk along Purgatory that would connect from Aquidneck Avenue to the top of the hill above Second Beach, connecting to that existing walking path that goes down to the beach. This is a project that's been in the works for really many years at this point. It's been identified for a while as a as a safety issue, particularly during the summer season with people in that area walking either to the Aquidneck Avenue Business District or walking towards the beach, and lots of folks walking in the street, and it has been identified as an issue. So the town council decided to proceed with this project. We sought funding through the State Transportation Improvement Program, which is a state program to provide funding for transportation projects that aren't necessarily all on state roads, because obviously this is not a state road, but it does offer funding for these types of projects, even on local roads. We were successful in getting this project into that state funding program with funding identified of about $600,000. The town council, or at least the administration, has identified a funding source to make up the difference to complete the construction. And we're also seeking, and hopefully we'll be successful in seeking additional federal funding through Congressman Cicilline's office. We've gotten a positive response so far, and we're hopeful that we'll be successful in getting some federal funding to offset what the town would have to contribute. So where we are right now is trying to come up with design plans that would be available to submit to Rhode Island DOT. They have to review the plans and sign off on them. And those would be the 30% plans that we're trying to finish up. Once that set is ready to go, we'll submit it for review by DOT, and then assuming positive response, proceed with final design. And of course, the town council is going to have an opportunity to weigh in as well. The schedule in terms of when this project might actually go to construction, we're looking at the fall of 2022, so about a year from now. We're hopeful to begin construction. We're certainly going to try to avoid the summer season for construction activities. And so we're looking at bidding the project probably next summer, and then starting construction in the fall. So the purpose of this meeting is to show you all our latest design plans. The last meeting, we had very, I guess, rough conceptual plans to review with you. What we have tonight, and Scott D'Amelio from VHB, our engineering contractor, will walk through the plans for us. It's a little more detailed. It's really the main purpose of tonight's meeting was to try to identify and answer questions about potential impacts on private properties along the proposed route, the impacts on vegetation, trees and shrubs, and that sort of thing. Also any temporary easements that might be necessary on private properties. On that note, I guess we'll see it on the plans as Scott goes through, but essentially throughout the length of the project, there is going to be need to access private properties along the route, at least for getting on there to activities. And then in some locations, there'll also be some grading that will be needed. And of course, the project would result in the full restoration of the private property. So wherever there's grading that needs to be done, that area would be restored as part of this project. So we'll be looking at, again, some impacts on vegetation. Scott will hopefully get into a little more detail on where grading might be necessary. And then after tonight, of course, we'll answer any questions, accept comments after the presentation. And then after tonight, and it's actually already posted, the plans are posted on the town website. Folks will have an opportunity to go to the planning department page, and right on the front planning department page, there's a link to these plans. So we'll offer, maybe a couple of weeks to allow for some additional review by the property owners. Then we'll probably have to reach out to each property owner individually. Have a template for an access agreement, temporary access agreement that we would probably want to get the property owners to sign off on. So that would likely be the next communication for those of you that are actually directly abutting where the work is going to be and might be impacted, that will be the next communication you would get from us, would be a request to sign off on that temporary access. And that would be through a mailing, provide you the agreement, and probably a map showing your particular property and the expected impacts. So that's I guess in a nutshell where we are and where we're going. So with that, maybe I'll just turn it over to Scott now and have him walk through. And some of you that may have joined the meeting earlier, I was talking with Scott. We have two options that have been designed to this point. One showing, a grass strip in between the curbs and the sidewalk where it's possible. And it's not possible everywhere, but the extent that we are able to, that one option shows a grass strip, and sometimes they're referred to as esplanade sidewalks. It's a policy adopted by the town council several years ago that when new sidewalks or substantial improvements to roadways are being considered, that these esplanade style sidewalks with the planting strip between the sidewalk and the street be included wherever possible. And the benefit of having that strip is it separates pedestrians a little bit more from the street traffic, makes for a more pleasant walking environment, a little bit safer, and more attractive. So that's the purpose for the adoption of the policy. So we're going to the best of our ability, comply with that policy. So Scott will walk through that particular plan set, but we also had him look at another option where we would have essentially no planting strips. And that was a concern that perhaps we'd be, with the planting strip, getting a little bit too deep into the abutting private properties and causing more disruption than we might want to. It seems like, based on the review so far, the disruption is probably not too extreme. The difference between the two isn't really very extreme. Scott will talk about that a little bit more, but it looks like that we'll be able to accomplish the planting strips for at least a portion of the stretch of the sidewalk. So with that, Scott, finally, I'm going to turn it over to you and have you go ahead and share your screen and walk us through the option that does have the grass strips, and talk about what kind of impacts we're seeing along the route.
Okay, thank you, Ron. I'll share my screen, and if you could just let me know when it shows up.
It's up.
Okay, so as Ron had mentioned, we have a couple of different options, one with the grass strip and one without. It just so happens like right now that's the one without. So let me change to the one with. Before we get started too far, let's look at the legend that's down here in the bottom. The blue coloring means there's a temporary easement in that location. Orange would have been a permanent easement. We don't have any of that. Purple would be an acquisition, and we don't have any of that. We try to highlight the shrubs or vegetation that's going to be existing or maybe need to be removed with the green and the red. And the proposed grass strip is shown with the green highlight. When we get into the plans, you'll see that the property line, approximate property lines are shown in red to kind of give you an indication of where property is and where the temporary easements may start or stop. So if we come up and we look here at starting at the Aquidneck Avenue and then moving east, we start picking up the sidewalk at the existing sidewalk and carrying it easterly. We start out with in both options, we have this little grass strip as the roadway narrows. We felt that, even whether there's a sidewalk or not a sidewalk, having this little piece here where there's a little grass strip, just because the roadway narrows there, and if for some reason someone happened to get a little bit too close to the curbing in that location, it would be a better situation to have the people have a little grass strip there, a little buffer. So as we look at this beginning piece, you'll see there's a couple of little blue spots here at these particular properties here. that's where we're doing a little bit of driveway work and sidewalk work. This property here and this property here have a fairly wide sidewalk and driveway. It's kind of in the public space realm at that area. However, it's not really public, and we need a temporary easement to fix the sidewalk and driveways at that area. Same as across the street here. This is just an easement to come in and repair the driveway after the sidewalk is installed. As we move easterly, you'll see that this dashed line here, if you can follow the hand, and that line is the anticipated line of impact by the project. And you might say, well, why do we have to have this temporary easement if the impact of the project is over here by the sidewalk? And Ron had alluded to this a little bit, is that we need a little bit of space to be able to manipulate workers and equipment in order to facilitate the construction of the project. So in general, you'll see that we have a 3 to 5 foot offset from the actual work line to allow contractor and his men to be able to construct the project as it's shown. So in this particular location, you'll see that, let me zoom in a little bit, that the sidewalk comes through, the easement, the sidewalk is built, the limit of grading is still within the roadway right of way. However, we have this temporary easement that comes along to allow construction. When you get to the very easterly end here, just before Tuckerman Avenue, if you look here closely, we had to narrow the road, this sidewalk down from 5 feet to 4 feet because the property line becomes so close to the sidewalk, and we didn't want to have the sidewalk being on private property. That's just for a short distance, comes back out to 5 feet and comes out to this ADA ramp to cross Tuckerman Avenue. As you look at these plans, you'll notice that we've shown the approximate area that's going to be impacted by this temporary easement boundary. For this particular lot here, it would be 780 square feet. For this abutting lot over here, it's 1,100 square feet. For this lot here, 62 square feet. I'm going to go back to this corner over here just because you may not have noticed, but if you really zoom in here, we have a very small temporary easement here of 70 square feet to be able to reconstruct the sidewalk right up against that building. So we continue easterly. We're able to construct the sidewalk, keep the sidewalk within the right of way. And we have a temporary easement to be able to construct the grading. It's at the back of the sidewalk. However, we are not able to get the grass strip in this location. As you could see, if we had a 2-foot grass strip here, we would be forcing the sidewalk onto private property, have to have a property acquisition, and that was not in the scope of the project. So here we're going to shift down to this next match line. And once we hit this match line, we were able to start a 2-foot grass strip. This is a 2-foot grass strip that we've installed. We were trying to get a 3-foot grass strip. However, as you see, if we had a larger grass strip, the sidewalk would have gone onto private property and would have been out of the scope of the project once again. So we have a 2-foot grass strip, 5-foot sidewalk, and we show this temporary easement coming through this area. As we're going through, you may notice that quite often the proposed sidewalk is following the face of utility poles. You'll see right here, this is a utility pole, and the back of sidewalk generally follows the face of the utility pole is the back of sidewalk. To give you an idea when you're in the field as to where this might be. So as we continue east, we run into this tree here, which happens to be impacted by the project. My recollection of this tree is the tree is it kind of misrepresented here in the plan view. It's actually back a little bit further, but the way the tree has grown is it grows out toward the street. And you may understand that the utility wires are running over here, so it's been trimmed such that it grows out over the street rather than over the property. However, the lower limbs do extend over the proposed sidewalk, so this tree would have to be removed. As we continue to move easterly here, you'll see that we have some shrubs that have been indicated for removal, some small planting flowers and things that would be impacted by the project. Most likely would need to be removed, especially these here that are in the sidewalk area or in the immediate grading area at the back of sidewalk. There are some others such as this here that are close but are not impacted.
And Scott, just to clarify, so those removals that you just identified, those are plantings that are on public property, is that right?
That's true, yes.
Okay.
And as far as the shrubs go, in a lot of cases along the street, the shrubs are planted right on the property line, it appears. So, you know, in some locations where you might be able to get a very strict trimming of those shrubs to allow the construction to happen. It's really difficult to say without having the equipment there and you know how much the shrub has been allowed to grow over the property line. But a lot of the base of these shrubs is appear to be right along the property line. Those are the large hedges. So then we run into this particular location here where we impact numerous trees. And, you know, this was a concern that that came up at one of our meetings. These are flowering trees. They're kind of nice in the springtime. And we looked to see if we could try and save them. We weren't able to come up with a concept maintaining the sidewalk on this side that would save these trees, but we did have an option for consideration where you could potentially move the sidewalk across the street and come back. And I have that option here. So here we would have the sidewalk would come across Walcott. We'd have to cross Purgatory through here, go up the north side of Purgatory for a block, and then come back. And that saves these trees on this side. Just food for thought and consideration. As we come back to our plan, again, we continue down the road. We have a couple of trees that are very close to the right-of-way line. We feel that these can stay in place. As you can see, our limit of grading is just at the back of sidewalk. Change pages. Again, as we move east here, just before Kane Avenue, we have a couple of trees here which are in the sidewalk, in the back of the sidewalk area. So what we've done here is we've tapered the sidewalk in to be a 3.5-foot sidewalk, tapered it out, tapered it in, tapered it out, trying to save these couple of trees right here. We think we can do that. It is a very short impact to the sidewalk and allowable through ADA. We continue up beyond Kane, easterly.
Just for those who may not be familiar, ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So as we're constructing this public sidewalk, we do have to comply with ADA. So that's what Scott's talking about.
Thanks, Ron. Continuing easterly, now we're up towards St. George's School. Again, 2-foot grass strip, 5-foot sidewalk, the grading towards the back of the sidewalk. Through this area here, we're concerned about this hedge that runs through here would be impacted by the construction. Just beyond here, we taper it back out because we don't want to impact beyond the utility poles. We would start running into some utility pole conflicts as we move easterly. You may notice that the green temporary easement area here has gotten wider than, Scott, you said it was going to be 3 to 5 feet. It's gotten wider than that through here. What we've actually done is kind of hold a 5-foot location here and tapered it back to where we need it back here, and that's just a straight line. Generally with temporary easements, it's not that large a concern to make this a curved line come through here that's 5 feet off. But if it needed to be done, we could do that. So we carried the sidewalk through here, 5-foot sidewalk, comes down. You'll see that here's one of the utility poles that I was talking about. We're trying to avoid impacting a lot of utility poles. This one happens to fall within the sidewalk. We may need to relocate that. We have to get some more detail on that. And we continue easterly. So no need for temporary easements through here. We have room to work with. And as we really get down to the easterly side, this is where we start to get a 3-foot grass strip. So we're able to get the full 3-foot grass strip down in this end. We have room to do the grading that we need to and just have a minor temporary easement to do the construction. And we move to this match line down here. And you can see that we continue with this 3-foot grass strip and the 5-foot sidewalk down to the corner of Tuckerman. We have lots of available area for construction without a temporary easement. And then we match into the existing walking path that goes down to Second Beach. Ron, any particular location there you think we like glossed over too quickly, should go back to?
Well, I think that, you know, we've said from the beginning of this project that we want to try to avoid, well, a couple of different goals. One was to try to keep the sidewalk on one side of the street. And early on, it was decided that the south side was going to be the most appropriate side of the street to try to keep it on. So that was kind of our starting point. And then doing that, trying to limit the adverse impact on private properties and also on vegetation that might be in the public right of way, particularly trees. So, you know, that one area, that line of 7 trees that are right smack dab in the middle of where the sidewalk would go if we were to keep it on the south side of the street. We heard at earlier meetings from folks in the area that you know, we should do the best that we can to try to save those trees, as Scott said. So we do have that option of or alternative of going across Purgatory to the north side and running it to avoid taking out those trees. Not the best solution, I don't think, in terms of you know, trying to keep everybody on one side of the street, but you know, with competing interests, a decision will have to be made, and it's not going to be made tonight, and it's certainly not going to be made by any of the 3 of us who are providing this presentation. I think that's something that will have to be discussed, perhaps by the town council, along with the property owners in that particular area, to go on the north side of the road. That's St. George's property on the north side. So we'd certainly want to talk with them. I think we've got some folks representing St. George's on the call tonight. So that's one area that's going to take some more discussion. Again, it's not going to be decided tonight, but would certainly welcome any input folks have on that particular issue. Other than that, I think that this plan does the best that it can to limit impacts. Aside from this line of 7 trees, I think there's just one tree that Scott highlighted that would have to be removed, and that's really about it. And then the shrubs, of course. I said once we're out on the site, have a better opportunity to evaluate the possibility of saving the shrubs with just trimming. But I think he's doing his best to identify those areas and anticipating that there's a possibility that those particular shrubs might not be saved and would have to be removed. So that's your attention as members of the public and the property owners in those directly affected areas. We'd certainly like to hear from you all about those issues. If you, through the presentation, have identified your property and see an impact that you would like to ask questions about or make comments on, certainly happy to hear those. And I think with that, Scott,
Ron,
if you don't, go ahead.
If I could just note that, this is what I had run through here was the grass strip option, which indicated some areas of impact for temporary easement boundaries. And, we also have this no grass strip option. So and when people have a chance to look at it, it doesn't necessarily have to be right now. But if you were to look at, I'm going to say, if we look at this same particular area of where these trees were, excuse me, this temporary easement boundary is 341 square feet. And if we go back to the one I was looking at, it's 775 square feet between the two options. So the no grass strip option, if there is a grass strip in front of that parcel that you're looking at, would have less impact on temporary easement boundary with the no grass strip. Did that make sense?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean we save the trees, but it would have a lesser impact, even though it's temporary. It'd be a lesser impact without
right. And I do want to note, Ron, if I didn't say it before, while we are asking for that 3 to 5 foot area beyond our limit of grading in order to facilitate the work, that doesn't mean that property is going to be impacted other than being just walked on or traveled over to be able to work in the area that would be graded. That dashed line, the limit of grading, is the area of where their actual physical work would happen.
So back to what I was saying at the beginning, our next step in terms of communication with the individual property owners, would we be able to, for each individual property owner, identify what we expect to see as an impact? So like you said, there may be properties where it's just workers walking on their property versus grading activity. Is that something that we could identify with the plans that we have now and be able to communicate with those individual property owners what we expect to see happen?
Yes. We have, I think, maybe 2 or 3 parcels where we don't have the topographic information to finish that analysis. However, majority of the parcels, we do have a limit of grading limits, and we can show that as well as the temporary easement limit. Okay,
great. So as I said earlier, we'll be communicating with the impacted property owners individually, identifying, particular impacts that we expect to see and asking for your approval to access your property for that temporary basis. And, as Scott highlighted as well, there's going to be no permanent takings, so to say. There's no change in property lines. There's not going to be any permanent occupation of private property as a result of this project. So we were able to keep the sidewalk entirely on public property. It's just really these temporary impacts that we're talking about, aside from the vegetation removal. So with that, unless you have anything else, Scott, or I don't know if you have anything, Warren, that you wanted to add.
Nothing comes to mind right now, Ron.
So I think we'll invite public questions and comments. So if you're on the app, just raise your hand. If you're calling in on the phone, you would dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're on the phone, that'll let me see that you wish to speak. And I'm just going to take them in the order that they come in here, and we'll address each comment and question. So first on the list is Mr. Bodeman, Chuck Bodeman. You want to go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm at 225 Purgatory Road, which is near Alston. If you could flip the map closer towards Alston. Okay, here's Alston. So we're at plat 116NE, lot 1800. So I think there's a set of mailboxes to the left-hand side of the driveway. Yeah, right exactly where your hand is. What do you do in the case of mailboxes? Do you just dig them up, or do we have to move them, or how does that work? And then the second question is, who shovels the sidewalk? Is it done by the town or done by the owner in front of it?
Well, I'll answer for the mailboxes. The mailboxes would be relocated as part of the project.
Okay, so you would relocate them. We would not need to do that?
That'd be correct.
Great,
Yep.
thank you.
And as far as the snow shoveling, the town has an ordinance that requires property owners to shovel snow from sidewalks along the frontage of their property. And I would
Okay.
expect that would be the situation here as well. It applies townwide. So property owners would be responsible for shoveling the sidewalks unless the town were to choose to take up that responsibility.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm just a little slow with the clicker here. Hold on a second. Next one on the list is Rick Ortiz. Rick,
Can you hear me?
there you go. Yep. Hey, how you doing,
Okay.
Rick?
Yes, I noticed that, well, you didn't really mention anything about the north side from Aquidneck Avenue to Crescent Street. My concern is there's a potential sidewalk that's going to be running along that space. And I live at block number 41. And if I look at this map, it looks a little different than last time. It looks like the sidewalk's away a little bit further than the last time, which may or may not address my concerns. I have a driveway that comes right up against the town line. And I think I might even have a foot or so into the town's property. And I have a nice piece of driveway material there that might be impacted.
So, Rick, you're right at the corner of Crescent and Purgatory. Is that you, lot 41?
It is, yes. Now, it looks like see, it's kind of hard to look at the scale, but it looks like the sidewalk is further away enough so it won't affect my driveway.
Ron, after our last meeting, we had some discussion and we removed that piece of sidewalk extending from the existing location on the north side up to Crescent. Now, we at that time, we were looking at trying to have pedestrian traffic be able to travel to Crescent Street and have a pedestrian crossing at Crescent of Purgatory at Crescent. And
There's no
And-
longer going to be a sidewalk on that side?
So we've removed that.
Oh, okay, that's great. But-
So Scott, that raises a question for me then. Why would we need the temporary easement areas on that side if we're not going to be working over there?
The only location we're using temporary easements on the north side is where there is existing sidewalk today. So there's existing sidewalk today. This is the, I've forgotten the name of the pub that's at the
That's
corner.
tickets.
And then this is a residential home here that, I think it's a residential home, that the sidewalk goes right up to the face of the building.
Right.
So we're replacing the sidewalk in this area for where the existing sidewalk is,
Not extending it.
not extending it.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, Rick, anything else?
Nothing else. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is Karen Day. Karen is the chairperson of the Tree Commission, for those who don't know Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, Ron. How are you? First of all, I love the fact that you've made such efforts to avoid removing those trees, and I really do appreciate that. There was some concern amongst some of the members of the Tree Commission about the 2-foot wide green belt along the road, simply from a maintenance standpoint. I understand the concept and I support that. I think it is more attractive. It does protect pedestrians, slightly more than it would be not being there. But the concern was raised about maintenance of that green belt. In some areas where I guess homeowners, or I'm assuming, take it upon themselves to keep the mode and attractive, they can look lovely. But in some areas, they just become weed infested, unsightly areas that will impact negatively to the area. And that is such a beautiful road right now. And I wouldn't want to see anything that takes away from that beauty that we already have. So, that was just a concern that we would, be thinking about. We're not sure that a 2-foot wide space gives us enough space for planting, trees or anything in that area. Maybe the 3-foot wide area, we could do something in the future. But that was just a concern that was mentioned amongst some of the members of the Tree Commission, and I wanted just to put it forward and have it possibly be something to be addressed, or at least planned for as this all moves forward. So that was my only comment, or my only concern.
Great, thanks, Karen. So yeah, I think we've heard that before, concerns about the maintenance. And in this case, being a town road, I believe the town is responsible for mowing those areas along town roads. Of course, often what happens is the private property owners will, on their own, as you said, go out and do the mowing themselves, but the town would be the responsible party for that mowing. We can certainly discuss that further, and I think once this gets to the town council level, we'll have some more discussion with them. As I said at the outset here, the town policy is that we provide these planting strips, the Esplanade style sidewalks, to the extent that we can. That's something that was talked about many years ago, and we certainly want to honor that policy if we can, but certainly open for more discussion.
Terrific, and I agree. I think it's, I think the concept is wonderful. We just have to look at the actual reality of it. But I do appreciate that. So thank you for letting me share that. I
Sure.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, next is George Staples, St. George's. Go ahead, George.
Hi, Ron. I appreciate the the presentation and it looks great. I wanted to offer a comment for the property across from our lower road, where I think maybe it's Plan B or your suggestion of moving the sidewalk onto the north side.
Yeah, Scott,
The
can you
only
pull up that?
The only thing I would offer from a safety perspective is everyone coming out of the lower road, delivery trucks, general population, people who use the pool, the theater, who aren't living on campus. The tendency is to, if they go right out of the lower road, so heading west. And they do a quick look left and then they take their car and they go west. And if people are walking up pedestrians, so we see it with a lot of runners who are trying to run against traffic, which is great and safe. And then those folks pulling out of the lower road who want to take a right and go west, there's often a lot of conflict with pedestrians. So I just offer that comment from a safety perspective. If you decide to go that route, it's not an impact to us or the property that's there,
Yeah.
but it's just something to think about with regards to a lot of traffic coming out of our lower road, people who don't necessarily live on campus, who would want to go west.
Sure. So is that like you mentioned trucks, is that your service entrance? Is
Yeah,
that-
like food trucks. Yeah, Cisco, delivery trucks, mail trucks, UPS, Amazon, Staples. Anyone who's coming into campus comes into that lower road. They usually exit west, so they'll take a right out. And the tendency is to look for a quick left for oncoming traffic and go right. And it looks like we're going to be pushing pedestrians to their right, which could be dangerous. So I just suggest a quick peek at that, or at least take a look at the traffic. And we're happy to offer suggestions and meet here on site to help. But it's something to look at just from a safety perspective for people who are maybe visiting the beach, aren't familiar with the area. If they're going to actually cross the road and then come to what is a high traffic entrance and exit out of the school.
Right.
That's
Okay,
it.
well,
Everything looks great.
yeah, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I wasn't sure exactly what kind of traffic was using that driveway. Do you have any thoughts on that, Scott?
Good points.
As far as
That's
trying
my-
to improve.
My first thought on wondering about this particular area was, there's some new construction going on in this area that could be changing some of the circulation. I don't know if this is impacted or not.
Yeah, so George, with the work you've got going on campus, does that change how that driveway is going to be used? No.
No, everything's behind basically the stone wall of the hedge. So everything would remain the same for us. I think we've seen, an increase of 300-400% of delivery via, Amazon, like I said, and it's Monday through Sunday. So it doesn't slow down for the weekend. Giving the community access to the pool, to the theater, maybe the field house. So we have a lot of people coming in from a rental perspective, hopefully with, COVID somewhat behind us. Just thinking out loud. Certainly the visual of people walking across the street and the sidewalk on the south side of the street is much safer, but trying to bring them back. I'd also say coming over the hill there where that crosswalk would be, I see a lot of people wait on the corner of Walcott and Purgatory on the south side, waiting to get across that street. I don't think there's a crosswalk currently.
Right.
And they could stay there quite a while as the traffic comes over the hill. I know the speed limit's on the lower side, but reality is that most folks either leaving the beach, it could get a little dangerous. So that would be my only concern, is pedestrians walking across the street at that point and then heading across a heavily traveled exit entrance. And I can appreciate trying to avoid the trees and the hedges across the street. It's really pretty, especially at a certain time of year, they're flowering trees. So I get it. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, not going to be decided tonight, but something that we'll need to talk about. Thanks a lot, George.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, next is Deb Gilchrist. Go ahead, Deb. Go ahead, Deb. If you're unmuted, you can go ahead. Not hearing anything.
There we go.
Deb Gilchrist, are you able to hear us, or if you're speaking, we cannot hear you? Okay, I think we'll have to move on to the next one, and we'll try Deb again in a bit. So next would be Karen Rourke. Hi, Karen.
Hello. Oops, let me turn.
You're echoing.
So I thank you very much for the meeting and for all your work. And I don't know what you will do with the trees, but I do appreciate all the effort the engineers have and you have gone through to Scott to try to save the treescape. So I just want to address the comment that I've heard a couple times over the years about the ordinance about Esplanade sidewalks and the maintenance issue. And I see them around our town and in Newport and in Portsmouth and actually all over the state. I think maintenance is a small issue with the grass strips. If people maintain their properties and if the town puts in proper materials for grass to grow, then mowing the strip is a small ask, I believe. And I don't see it as a problem. When you just look at them, when you drive around town, you can look at, most of them are maintained, and it's dramatically more attractive than the sidewalk up to the street edge, where the biggest thing that I want to keep reminding, which thank you, Ron, you explained the whole reason for the Esplanade sidewalks so well. It's safety. It's for pedestrian safety. And if I just would ask everyone who is on the fence of which plan to go for, whether to follow the resolution that the town passed years ago or eliminating the safety feature of the grass strip, just drive around, not only look around where they are around town, but also notice how many people walk that hill. I mean, it's the reason we have sidewalks and the reason why they're ADA compliant is that so people can traverse safely on a very narrow road. So I would just wanted to make sure that that was in the public discussion. And the other thing, that the maintenance issue of the shoveling the sidewalks, it came up at the town council meeting, and there's 2 points I'd like to make on that. When the snowplows go through and they dump snow, that's the best time to have an Esplanade strip, because the snow goes on the grass and leaves the sidewalk easily shoveled. And one council person, I believe it was Mrs. Santos, said she was concerned about sidewalks for some of the residents that are unable to shovel. And the town does, you just call the town and you get on a list and they help people who need help shoveling the sidewalks. So that is all I have to say, because if you ever walk down to the beach from our neighborhood, from Purgatory, and you walk across Easton's Beach in front of the Dunlap Wheeler Park, there's a sidewalk there that goes right to the curb. And when it snows, it's covered with snow. And it's hard for people to walk through. And if the park was just a little bit in and there was a little bit of strip, then it's just, it's safe. And that's all I have to say. And thank you very much for your work. I didn't have prepared remarks. So thank you so much. And I look forward to looking at the plans. I just got out of the car and was able to get into the Zoom meeting. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Karen. Have a good night. And just, again, I said this at the beginning, the plans are now posted on the planning department website. So if you just go to middletownri.com, get to the planning department site, down on the lower left, you'll see a link to Purgatory Sidewalk. And the plans that Scott reviewed tonight are there. And you're welcome to review those at your leisure and provide comments directly to me. We'll be working on addressing those concerns and getting to the final design, or at least the 30% design, getting that complete and presented to the town council as soon as we can. And with that, I'm going to continue the conversation here. So next on the list is somebody identified as PF4. So whoever PF4 is. PF4, if you want to speak, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Be anybody there? If you're speaking, you need to unmute. I can't unmute you from my end.
Mute. How about that?
There you go.
Oh, I got it. Okay. I've got your audio from the telephone, okay, because I can't hear anything. Okay. Okay. I'm Payson Fugit. I'm from 1 Kent Road. I walk my triangular block 3 times a day. Okay, I go from Ashurst to Tuckerman, Tuckerman to Surfer's End to Ashurst and home. I know this area inside out. Okay, you've solved the number one problem I had, or at least you know about it. That's I need metric time, 8 feet distance between me and cars. I will not walk up that road without that, guaranteed. Okay. The first 200 feet going up, okay, there's bushes on the side that push you into the road. The town was absolutely outstanding this year at cutting them back so I had space. Okay. Anyway, I want you to be sure that when you make any changes like this, that the town has the equipment to support that when necessary, because it's not handled by the property owner. After the second phone pole, which is about 200 feet up, it's beautiful. Everything's fine. Okay. The problem with that area is water. We got a marsh down at the Tuckerman end that is just very damp. The pipe that goes under Tuckerman is too small. The water backs up when we have a heavy rainstorm, okay, and then lo and behold leaves a massive puddle at that corner when it stops. The other problem, if you make it bigger, is that lo and behold, if you get more volume of water, you wash out the path along the barriers down towards the beach, right? Okay. And I think that's about it on that. The next question is, it's liability. If somebody falls down on this sidewalk, is the town protected at all for damages for not maintaining it? In other places where I've lived, the property owner that abuts it has to fix it. I just spent over $1,000 to fix concrete that had come up that you could trip on in my other house. Okay, because there's that kind of an ordinance. The problem with the ordinance that you mentioned that has to do with snow, it's missing one simple statement. Basically, you want to inhibit the property owner from either shoveling or plowing the snow into the street. And that's not the way the ordinance is written. And the other only comment is from Purgatory Lane down on the north side. I don't know why you have a sidewalk. Okay. My other comment is I would say that 80 to 90% of the traffic is on the south side. That's the easiest one to deal with. The other thing I was going to say is if I don't have my 8 feet, I would rather have the barrier extended from Tuckerman up the road. My other thought was, if you wanted to do like town engineer, probably one of the most dangerous intersections in Middletown is the intersection of Tuckerman and Purgatory. If you're coming from, actually from the north down Paradise, up Purgatory, and then have to make a left turn into Tuckerman. At sundown, lo and behold, you're sun blinded completely and you can't see the traffic coming down. I'm so glad they put the crosswalk in. And I think that's about it. If you have any questions about me, what I've said, please ask me.
Thank you, Mr. Fugate. That's excellent questions. Just to address a couple of them, I'm not aware that the town requires private property owners to repair sidewalks that are town sidewalks. There's the ordinance regarding shoveling of snow is one thing, but I'm not aware that there's. Warren, do you know of anything that requires a private property owner to repair public sidewalks?
I don't,
I couldn't find
Ron, I
any.
don't believe there's anything that requires the private owners to repair those sidewalks. Those are ours to maintain the condition of them.
Yep. And regarding the hedges, certainly the town does the best that it can in keeping the hedges clear, and private property owners for the hedges that are on private property are responsible for doing that. But as you mentioned, Mr. Fugate, the town oftentimes has to contact property owners to ask them to trim their hedges. So that would be no different in this situation. So thank you for your comments, and thank you for attending the meeting.
Ron, I'd just like to add, Mr. Fugate had mentioned something like he thought there was a sidewalk on the north side of the road at Purgatory Lane area. And I'm sorry, I didn't explain the plan very well. We do have a saw cut line on the north side of the road, but that's only to install the edging of the roadway at that side. There is not a sidewalk proposed on that side. That's
right. Yeah. So good point. The only area that we're looking at currently, at least, but possibly going on the north side, would be in that short area to try to save those 7 trees. Other than that, the sidewalk is entirely on the south side of the road. So next on the list, we're going to try Deb Gilchrist again and see if she's able to speak. So
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Oh, hi, thank you. I have the house belonging to Purgatory Associates, which is over at the Crescent Road to Aquinic Avenue end.
Let's give Scott a minute to navigate over to that plan that's over by Aquinic Avenue, Scott. So that's on the corner. Is that on?
So I am lot 39.
Yeah, kind of small.
Yeah, you're close. Okay, so right there, plat 116 Northwest, lot 39. And I'm just unclear what you are going to do right in front of that, because it's a residential and a commercial space. And over the years, it's just been the parking area for the commercial space. So there's not really a sidewalk in front of there.
So Scott, is that the area that you said we're not gonna get into there, or?
No, at that location, we're proposing to place a sidewalk there. It, at least at this point in time, it was a case of replacing more or less in kind. However, where we would put in a curbing, which would somewhat impact what Deb is talking about as parking.
Right, it would leave no parking for that commercial spot.
So I think that's, we've talked about this particular area. Mr. Ortiz brought up, the concerns
Right.
along his property as well. So we've been talking about this for quite a while, what we do with that particular stretch and whether we need to, since the sidewalk is going to be on the south side of the road through there, whether we need to look at the north side in that particular stretch. So I think it's something that we can certainly look at some more. And
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Hopefully at that point, nothing would have to be done right there.
right. Yep. Yeah. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I can picture it in my head,
Yeah.
the pavement goes pretty much right up to the building and it's used for parking.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And it may be that we avoid, that work on the north side in that particular area if it's not necessary, but we'll certainly talk about it some more.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks.
Okay, next on the list is, I'm assuming this is John Bagwell. It says Lee Bagwell, but John, is that you?
Yeah.
Hi, John.
So I guess until you see this kind of a plan laid out, you have absolutely, you don't have any sense of the kind of detail you have to go through to make something like this happen. People see a sidewalk. Oh, you put the sidewalk in anyway. Thank you very much. Very technical, very professional. Now, my comment is, frankly, I drive this Purgatory Road several times, sometimes several times a day. And the thought of people crossing the street is really a little scary. And I second the comments about that fellow, a couple spoke about driving that at sunset. I did that the other day. The sun was in my eyes. I couldn't see a thing. The problem is the people are crossing the street. The sun is at their back, so they think they're not aware of the fact that the drivers are blinded. Frankly, I think it's a matter of saving lives or saving trees. I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think crossing the street, Purgatory, you'd save the trees, but I think it puts people into significant danger. And I also think people would wonder, why in the world do I have to cross this, then go back and cross again? Twice you're at risk in the traffic going along that street, unless you get into elaborate crosswalks and signs and everything else, which is now a very pretty lane almost. I think it would be a real mistake to do anything except keep the road on that south side of the street. So thank you, Ron, for giving me a chance to express my views.
Thank you, John. So yeah, we're gonna have more discussion on that situation of those 7 trees. Again, the goal has been to try to save the trees. There are other considerations, safety being certainly top of the list. So we'll look at that some more and have some discussions before any final decision is made. Anyone else? Okay, it looks like Karen Rourke would like to speak again. Go ahead, Karen.
So I just wanted to thank John for his articulate comment, because I think in my giving you guys a compliment for trying to save the trees, I just want to make sure that it's also said that I think his point about crossing the road and the serpentine sidewalk is a very well, I take his point quite well, and I completely support what he said. And I also, the light in the eyes at the corner down at the Tuckerman curve, down on at the top of Surfer's End, that's where Michael Strickland was killed on a bicycle accident with that same time of day. And so there's a lot of signs going up in the town, a lot, like there's those chevrons at that curve there. Perhaps there could be a notification to drivers and pedestrians about the sun being an issue. I'm not sure if I've ever seen that before, or if that could be done, but that might be something to consider part of this about safety, crossing the road safely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Karen. Warren, not to put you on the spot, but are you aware of any discussions that might have gone on that particular intersection there?
No, only only the addition of the crosswalk and the signage associated with the crosswalk and share the road type signs, Ron. But I don't know. I could check with Park Corporation. They're doing the traffic studies for us. We have 2 ongoing. We have 4 ongoing right now. So I'll check with them and see if there's anything you can do about that blind. And I agree with everybody, John and Karen, about those that area coming around that curve at sundown. It's right in your eyes there. So maybe there is some signage or warning we can give to them. I'll get back to you on that.
Great. Thanks, Warren.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak, ask questions, make comments? All right, seeing none, I think we're probably set for tonight. So as I said a couple of times already, we'll be working towards getting the 30% plans finalized, getting those to the appropriate folks, the town council, and then DOT for approval. We'll be reaching out, as I said, to the individual property owners, trying to better describe the impacts on each individual property so that we're able to have more of a, I guess, a one-on-one conversation with folks and get them to understand what the potential impact is and get their authorization for that temporary access to their property. And with that, I think, I don't know, Scott, Warren, if you had anything else that comes to mind.
I don't, Ron. Don't, just all good points, and thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you all. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Warren. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And stay tuned. We'll be getting more information to you as time goes on, and we'll be in touch. So thanks again. Have a great night.